Welcome to Outfitter Interviews with Safari Club International's Golden Gate chapter. Today we are privileged to have Michael and Danielle Grossi of International Adventures Unlimited. Welcome to the show. Please introduce yourselves and tell us about your services.
I'm Michael Grossi. This is my wife, Danielle. We have made a full-time living taking people big game hunting on all 6 continents where hunting is available for 42 years now. And we are not booking agents. We are outfitters. We are there in person to make sure that everything more than lives up to our guest standards. Danielle is heavily involved, obviously, in the office, and as well as Scotland, which is the main thrust of our operation today. She takes all of the non-hunters touring guests or touring castles and historic sites.
Okay, for those people who don't really understand, what do you mean by you're not a booking agent? What is a booking agent, and how is it that you're different from that?
A booking agent merely sets up hunts for outfitters, professional hunters, wherever they might be. And we do all of this ourselves, from putting together the even airline packages to importing trophies, and leasing the ground, hosting the guests, meals, lodging. So it's a real turnkey event for our guests, that they don't have to worry about this, or they're not dealing with an agent who's telling them one thing, and then when the client gets there, the outfitter is doing something different. We are the outfitter or professional hunters.
Okay. Well, that sounds like that's a much better deal for the hunter. Could you tell us, what species do you hunt?
The hunt in Scotland is twofold. In the spring, we hunt the little roe deer, which is Europe's common deer, like whitetails, North America's common deer. We hunt the last of May and the whole month of June, because that is when the little roe deer is in the rut. It's the only deer in the world that has a reproductive cycle like that. Then in the fall, we hunt the big red stag, roe deer, fallow deer. There are other rams that are indigenous to Scotland. Some date back thousands of years. We can also take you down to England to add some additional species like the muntjac, Chinese water deer, and other animals that would be available in England as well.
So you hunt the stags there, and those are indigenous. They're not introduced like they would be in a lot of other places where they hunt the red stags.
Yes, that's correct. And the roe deer is indigenous there. Where fallow deer originally came from is still a debatable subject, but they are wild and free-ranging in Scotland as well.
What about tags and licenses? Do people have to apply for the tags?
No, Europe and Scotland especially is much like Africa, where the landowner that owns the land where the animal lives controls that. And so we make our wildlife hunting experiences, the agreements with the landowner. There is no license in Scotland. The permission to hunt comes from the landowner where we are hunting.
So how do you hunt? Is it primarily by vehicle? A lot of walking involved, horseback? What is the mechanism that people use for hunting?
That'll depend on the hunter's physical condition, because we have over 50 estates where we have some shooting rights leased, which encompass over 1 million acres, which no one has that kind of an operation in the UK. So we can take older people to areas where it's a little easier to hunt. Vehicles obviously will cover a certain amount of the distance. Walking is going to be involved some, but it doesn't have to be real extensive, in other words. So we seldom hunt from what they call a high seat or a tree stand. It's pretty much all spot and stock. All of our hunts over there are one-on-one, so each hunter has their own guide, and it's a real personal experience.
That sounds great. You can accommodate such a different variety of abilities that way. But what is there for the non-hunter to do while they're there?
Basically, for the last 25 years, I've had my same driver who gives us the insider's look into Scotland. We leave every morning to find the best castles and historic sites. Those include the William Wallace Monument, which is where Braveheart took place, and we climb to the very top of the tower and everyone has to scream freedom. We also go to Stirling Castle one day and Scone Palace, where 42 kings of Scotland were crowned. We go into the Highlands, we take a distillery tour, we go to Blair Castle, which has the greatest collection of arms in Scotland because the Duke still has his own private army. We also go to House of Brewer, the Falls of Brewer, and then one afternoon we'll go over to St. Andrews, which is on the East Coast. It's just a beautiful little city. That's where Kate met William. And so you can walk through the grounds of St. Andrews, go to the cathedral, and of course it's known for its golf. And so we have lunch right off of the 18th hole. And in the afternoon, everybody goes over to the driving range, whether you've been able to find the pursuit of golf in any time of your life or not, and we hit golf balls so everybody can say they golfed at St. Andrews. So that's typically what we do in the fall. In the summer, a lot of times we'll go over to Dunnottar Castle. That's where the Scottish people saved the crown jewels from Oliver Cromwell. And it's one of the most beautiful sights you will ever see. I just love taking all of the non-hunters in my bus, touring a place that's become like a second home to us, to show them the beauty and the rawness of Scotland, as well as you get to see and interact and know a lot of the local people. All of our guides are local, and like I said, I've had my same driver for 25 years. So you are hosted by people who know what you need and how to be generous with you. And you also get that local flavor. So you really feel like you've had a whole experience.
Wow, that really does sound great. I'd like to do that part too. After hunting and stuff like that, be able to tag along. So, all right. Oh, but since you mentioned the firearms museum and stuff like that, what about types of weapons that people can use? I mean, do you have hunts for archery, rifle, muzzleloader? Obviously, presumably not pistol in Scotland. And do you have guns available for people to borrow or rent?
In Scotland, as in a lot of Europe, archery hunting is still not legal. And so we must use a firearm in Scotland. And I can secure for you your Scottish firearm visitor's certificate is what they call it. However, it's a real hassle to bring your own gun, and it can be fairly expensive. Almost all of our guests do some additional touring. Our basic package may include their round-trip airfare, so it doesn't matter to us if you're going to spend some more time. We've got to buy you that plane ticket anyway. If you are touring on your own, that rifle must be in a police-approved safe every night, so it becomes very cumbersome if you're doing some additional touring. So far and away, the best thing to do is rent one of our guns. All of my gamekeepers and myself and my son have really fine quality weapons. They're all equipped with moderators and bipods and custom triggers that it's important that the firearm doesn't let our client down. So I would suggest renting them, and we rent firearms for basically the cost of ammunition over there. The spring and the fall hunt are hosted with smaller caliber guns than what you might use over here. That's just tradition over there. They're not into the big magnum, but the red deer, probably the most common caliber would be something in the 270 class and maybe 243 class in the roe deer or the smaller deer then.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That's really good to hear. What kind of trophies can people expect to find on these properties?
The spring roe deer hunt is for $2, and a couple things there. We take taxidermists from the U.S. over there, and they are all set up to properly take care of the animals, secure the health certificates and so forth. And I also have my own U.S. Fish and Wildlife Import-Export license. So as part of the hunt package, we import the animals for our guests just on a cost basis, which means within 60 days of the conclusion of the hunt, you'll have your trophy at about a sixth of the cost of what other people are going to charge you to get that same thing done. So that's a real convenience and savings for our guests, as opposed to no one else over there does that same thing.
So when you get an animal down, then you guys handle all of the trophy prep and all of that kind of things. If somebody's local to that area, do they get to keep any of the meat, or is that owned by the landowner?
The landowner keeps the meat. It's just a U.S. law. We cannot import any meat into the United States. So it's just legally not possible to do. However, the places where you stay, and we may talk about that more later, these are old 18th century luxurious Duke's estates, and the venison will be on the menu at least once for all of our guests, for them to try the red deer or the roe deer, so they get a chance to taste it. It won't be the animal they actually harvested. The game dealers come to the estates, pick up the carcasses, and they're aged just like we age beef over here for 2-3 weeks. The animals are aged and then processed, and the meat then is sold to restaurants or grocery stores, because it's quite common to find venison in a supermarket over in the UK.
Okay. That's a perfect segue into what are the accommodations like?
Yes, both places we're currently staying at, one in the spring and one in the fall. Both of them are from time to time used in the fall, depending on which estates we're hunting. But these are old 18th century estates that have been made into like a hotel guest facility. And 20 years from a person taking the hunt, they will probably talk about where they stayed as much as the hunt itself, because it's a real unique experience.
Yeah, I bet that's true. I know that I was visiting England one time and stopped at a restaurant, or was an inn, that had been an inn since the 1500s. And so that was, I still talk about that. So what can people do to prepare for this hunt and ensure their best chance of success?
My job is to have the best properties leased, the best guides available, the best trophy care, and to take care, of the animals. The only thing I can tell you is, in 25 years hosting a red stag hunt in Scotland, no one has ever gone home without their trophy. Now, the basic package that we offer to the guests includes round-trip airfare, all the airport transfers, meals and lodging at these luxurious estates, and the harvesting of what's commonly referred to as a hill stag, just a wild stag up in the high Scottish heather. That will require a person to be in a bit better physical condition than hunting in some of the lower ground. like New Zealand and Argentina, not many people know that we have several estates where we have what Safari Club calls estate stags. These are animals that are part of a breeding and feeding program, and they do grow to much greater proportions than what the ones that are just living up on the open hill where the winters are much harsher and the food is a lot less. So as far as the quality, one of my guests holds the number one world record Scottish estate stag. We have the number one and number two hill stags as well. So the quality of the big stags like New Zealand will be dependent on what the hunter is looking to harvest. And that price varies because of the age and the care that that animal, has had to have had over that time period. Our basic package, though, includes the harvesting, again, of either 2 roe deer on the spring hunt or a hill stag in the fall. Then additional animals on both hunts can be harvested for a trophy feed, just depending on timetable and what the hunters are looking to do while they're over there.
So if somebody books a hunt for, let's say, a stag hunt, a hill stag hunt, and they get their stag on the first day, but they want to keep hunting, they could actually add a second stag?
They can add a second stag. They're actually quite reasonable. Most of Europe is known for pretty expensive hunting, but it's no big deal, in other words, to hunt a second stag, hunt a fallow deer, hunt a roe deer. There are, again, some rams that were up on the northwest coastal islands that we have access to. Probably the most unique one is the Soye ram. Came across a land bridge from mainland Europe when Scotland was still tied to mainland Europe, so obviously thousands of years ago. And there are still some of those about that we have access to, that you can harvest a Soye ram at a very reasonable price, and it makes for a unique addition to the hunt.
That does sound very interesting. So, but these are not some of the domestic rams that some hunts offer. These are true indigenous rams.
Yes, they were indigenous rams. A lot of them are kept on these big estates for the novelty of it, and the Hebridean ram, the Manx is on the Isle, came originally from the Isle of Man, but there are some areas in Scotland where you could actually hunt a Manx ram, and not many people even know that they are even available.
Very good. So, it sounds like you've got quite an operation here and everything. Now, why is it that you got into guiding to begin with?
Well, as a little kid, I used to deliver my newspapers and take my BB gun to the river. So I always loved hunting, and decided in 1979 that I would make a career of it. I had been able to hunt some internationally prior to that, and had my own concept of, okay, if I'm going on a hunt, this is what I would like to experience. And having the wives or other non-hunters come along, I felt was really important. Scotland, because of the history going back thousands of years, makes it a real special couples trip, in other words. Even though in the day, again, we were hunting or hosting about 700 hunters a year on all 6 continents, we've kind of brought it down to primarily Scotland and the UK for now, although we have hunts in other areas as well.
Okay. I'd like to really thank you for joining the show here and letting our viewers see all that you have to offer. Do you have any final parting thoughts?
I think what we hear the most from our guests is and there's a lot of hunting to do in the world, but this has been their favorite trip that they've come on. We've also enjoyed it. And the guests, because of the additional touring they can do, it adds a real special dimension to what we offer, and that we're there every step of the way, so they can just relax from start to finish and know that they're in good hands. And the satisfaction of the smile on our hunter's face means more to me than probably anything else. So they can see we're pretty sincere about doing that.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and good hunting.
Thank you.